Hey everybody, welcome back to Extreme Weather Zone. In this video, we'll be looking at the wild weather pattern that's going to be bringing extreme heat to the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. And also, more severe weather and potential tropical activity. But first, if you're new here, please be sure to hit the subscribe button for more weather updates. So, there's actually severe storms today blowing up basically across the Central Plains into the Midwest. And the SPC has an enhanced risk of severe weather, especially over Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. And you have a slight risk that extends all the way from eastern Colorado down to the panhandle of Texas, going all the way into Michigan. And there's a 5% chance of tornadoes in the enhanced risk area, but a big section of strong winds that are going to be happening, potential hurricane force winds. Wait till you see the wind gusts. They're pretty high. And then also very large hail across northeastern Kansas, northern Missouri, southern Iowa, and also Illinois, including Chicago in that risk for hail. And then it actually continues tomorrow. You have storms in the Northeast, a slight risk of severe weather there for wind and hail. No tornadoes expected right now. But then we have also a slight risk of severe weather kind of, eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and western Kansas for a slight chance of tornadoes, but this is mainly wind and some hail. And then this continues into Saturday, kind of a low-end, kind of marginal severe weather event. Nothing from the SPC on Sunday, but also another severe weather risk on Monday across, especially Minnesota. This could expand for more of the northern plains and kind of the Midwest. So there's that. And the CSU model kind of shows really not much of a tornado event today. More hail and especially wind over northern Missouri. And then tomorrow there's slight chance of tornadoes, but mostly wind for the Northeast and hail for the kind of just east of the Rocky Mountains. And then on Saturday, there's actually a bit more severe weather, but then Sunday, still, it's showing kind of, not an intense amount of severe weather over the kind of northern plains and the Midwest, but several days of severe weather continues. And then, even into day 6, which is, Tuesday, a slight potential for severe weather. But then it looks like it really tones down after that. But then there's going to be a lot of heat building in places of severe storms. And this is kind of the NAM model is showing those severe thunderstorms with the strong winds, kind of a line of storms in, southern Iowa, northern Missouri, kind of this evening and tonight, and then over the next kind of few hours, but then it tones down, and then you have the storms over Florida actually look like they're toning down with all that rain. There was actually a flash flood emergency in Florida yesterday, and then you have that disturbance that's, it's kind of generating all that rain. This is the disturbance, but it really doesn't, the NAM model is not really showing it doing anything. It's not, if there's a weak low pressure, but it doesn't look tropical. But then you do have these storms on tomorrow night. These storms kind of go from eastern Colorado, it rolls through. Looks like this is a bowing out kind of line. You could have some really strong winds with that. And then you do have those scattered storms over in the Northeast. And also today it was looking like can also be severe storms in southeastern Ontario and southwestern Quebec and southern Canada. So this extends pretty far with the severe storms. And then you also have rain and snow moving into the Pacific Northwest, some cooler temperatures there, and that's part of this extreme weather pattern change. And then, those storms continue, and then you even have on Saturday some scattered thunderstorms there in the kind of the northern plains going towards the Midwest. In terms of the wind gusts, yeah, this is showing southern Iowa. You could have wind gusts almost close to 90 miles an hour there in this area. And yeah, that's over the next 12 hours. And then also in Kansas, you kind of have some strong winds there, but maybe about close to hurricane force winds. But really, it does look like the worst winds are going to be right here, and these storms are happening right now. You actually have quite a few severe thunderstorm warnings going all the way from Kansas over into Iowa, Illinois, and even tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings in Canada. Then as this kind of extends out, you see all these, bowing out thunderstorms bringing some of those strong winds, really tracking through even Illinois. This would be tonight, and then there's going to be even strong winds happening tomorrow and Saturday. And then this is the kind of the updraft helicity tracks. This is hail, potentially, updrafts, which is hail and tornadoes possibly, and the strong winds, just kind of showing where these severe storms are. You have those storms kind of in Canada, and as we can see, there's tornado warnings there, potential tornadoes, and then you also have these storms across the Midwest and Central Plains, and then that tones down. And then look what happens. You actually have some of those storms going through Kansas, and then that tones down too. And then you might have some storms going through the Dakotas, but especially in Nebraska on Saturday. So, we'll see what happens with that. I'm sure they could upgrade that to a slight risk from that marginal risk. And then also, all that heavy rain in Florida. Look at this. There's a high risk of excessive rain, which would lead to flooding across South Florida today. There's still that high risk of flooding and a moderate risk around that. Really, the southern half of Florida is entirely in at least a slight risk. And then a slight risk tomorrow. We'll see if that gets upgraded to moderate risk. But it does look like the rain is toning down, because the flooding risk actually goes away, because all that rain is it really does look like that's going to tone down, and then some of that moisture it moves further west. But you'll have regular thunderstorms and rain over Florida, just not as extreme as what was happening over the past few days. And then it looks like some more rain returns, but it doesn't look quite as extreme, this far out. Maybe just normal, hopefully just normal amounts of rainfall. But this is showing, all the way till Sunday morning, the next 72-hour precipitation over the next 3 days. This is pretty much 2 to 4 inches of rain across South Florida, in addition to what's already happened, which I think they got 17 inches of rain in Florida, in southern Florida, in just 24 hours. It's like, that's a lot of rain. And so, yeah, it does look like the 24-hour precipitation, it definitely tones down before it could ramp back up a little bit, but this is more of just regular rain, like having an inch or an inch and a half in a day versus 17 inches. So this is more normal rain going in towards June 23rd. And this is the extreme pattern change that's going to happen. Right now, you have all this ridging over the western U.S., bringing a lot of heat, but then you have this sort of cutoff low moving into the southwest. This goes, and this actually goes and becomes more of like a trough, and you'd think this could lead to severe weather, which it sort of will on Saturday, but it's pretty weak, so it's not really going to do much of anything. But that ridge is really moving east pretty steadily, and then it starts building over the Midwest, by Sunday, and then you have more troughing over the Pacific Northwest, and then it gets more extreme by like Tuesday. You have this huge ridge, especially over the Northeast, where that's a pretty strong ridge, and then you have a really intense trough over the Western U.S., and so then it gets even more extreme going into Tuesday night. You have this just a huge ridge over the even southeastern Canada and the Northeast, and then the trough in the West is actually toning down a bit, and then it actually fills in. It looks like the ridge of the East is less intense. You kind of have a weak trough over the Midwest, but then you have more ridging in the Western U.S., and it's like almost the entire U.S. is mostly ridging, and that's going to bring a lot more above average temperatures. But you start off with you have these above average temperatures over the West, and then it really changes where you have those colder temperatures pushing down over the Northwest, and then over the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, the Northeast. You really have those above average temperatures building. You have extremely above average temperatures, possibly 30, 40 degrees above average, and going into Canada especially, it's like that's pretty intense. And you have the South actually is not gonna, like, there's rain and stuff like that. They aren't gonna even be that much above average. It's like normal summer temperatures, or possibly a little cooler than that. And especially across the Western U.S., it's going to be cooler. Like, there was that rain and snow in the mountains, the higher elevations, but you're going to have extreme heat across this whole area. Is just going to be cooked, and then that continues. But then it looks like even the Northeast just continues to be above average, but then more heat builds in the Western U.S. again. So then it looks like the whole U.S. is above average in terms of the temperatures. And the National Weather Service has like a heat risk thing, and it's showing a lot of heat over the Southwest. But then look what happens. You start getting more heat over the East. That all that heat is starting to move eastward, and then Sunday, major heat risk across most of the central U.S. and the South, with some more extreme heat risk there. But then look what happens. Some extreme heat risk over Iowa and Missouri, and then also Michigan under major heat risk. This whole Midwest and Ohio Valley kind of area is in that major to extreme heat risk, and then it gets even worse. You have even worse extreme heat risk over Illinois, Chicago, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, and then it gets worse as it pushes east. It's really going to be the Northeast that's going to really be cooked with this extreme heat risk, and that's rare or long duration heat with little to no overnight cooling, and this is going to be really bad over those areas. That it could, I don't know if it'll get to record heat levels, but it could get close. And these are kind of the actual temperatures. It starts off with that heat in the Southwest getting close to 115 degrees in Arizona and southeastern California. But then temperatures start getting into the hundreds. Even this is Saturday, and then you're in the high 90s to close to 100 across this whole central U.S. kind of area and the South. Yeah, that's not going to be good. And then you have at night temperatures go into the upper 70s to maybe even the low 80s, and then it gets into the hundreds. And there's going to be humidity with the heat. Now, some of the heat is up further north, so it's not going to be as humid as it would be in the South, but still, definitely extreme heat, because it's not good if it only gets down to like 80 degrees at night, and then it goes up to like close to 100. That's not good. and you could get to 100 in Michigan, and that's not something that's supposed to happen very often, at least. And then it looks like over time that heat gets less intense over, especially over the Northeast, but and the Midwest. But then that heat really builds again in the Southwest and the Northeast too, where it could be 100 degrees there at the same time as it's going to be even approaching 120 degrees in Arizona. That's actually on the first day of summer. And still, the heat continues across most of the U.S. Could be in that. So, yeah. So there's that. That's not going to be good. And the heat index is going to be even worse in some of these areas. This is showing the heat index, goes definitely over 100 across the South, even on Saturday and Sunday. So this weekend is going to be really hot over there. And then the triple digit heat index goes into Michigan. You could have the heat index, 102 degrees potentially in Michigan. And then even in Canada, you could have the heat index being 100 degrees, and that's on Tuesday. And then it really explodes across even the Northeast. It looks like maybe New York City doesn't get as much of the heat as it was looking like before, but still, this whole Midwest, especially Michigan and Ohio, looks like definitely well above average temperatures, and even Maine, it looks pretty bad. Like heat index of 105, yeah, you're getting close to, if the actual temperature is in the triple digits, you're getting close to record high temperatures. And then more heat in the Southwest, but it's going to be drier there, of course. So there's that, and the Climate Prediction Center has looks like a 90% chance of above average temperatures, across, especially this kind of northeast region, not by the coast, but the inland northeast. And this is June 19th to June 23rd, but some of the worst part of that heat, when it's kind of in the Midwest area, is kind of June 17th to June 20th, I think, with some of the worst heat. And then you have, it's going to be dry in that whole area, but above average precipitation, especially in in the South, and the Gulf Coast, Texas, a lot of areas seeing just the daily explosion of thunderstorms with that heating. And then still above average temperatures, but then also the West is warming up again with dry conditions there, but near or above average everywhere else. And then this is the kind of risk of hazardous temperatures. You have a moderate risk of excessive heat. This is going June 21st in the Northeast, and then June 21st to 24th across this whole area, and June 21st, that's when you kind of get that heat really building back into the West. And then also some heavy rain along the Gulf Coast. Because remember, the tropics are actually getting active too. And this was released just today from the Climate Prediction Center. They basically have a La Nina watch. And it says, ENSO Neutral conditions are present. La Nina is favored to develop during July to September, 65% chance, and persist into winter 2024 to 2025, with an 85% chance of it continuing during November to January. So we're officially going into neutral conditions and going towards a La Nina. Yeah, we're in a neutral, and then it's definitely going towards a La Nina. You can see those sea surface temperatures right there. In terms of the tropics, yeah, this is that Invest 90. Only a 20% chance of formation. It looks like it's probably not going to develop into anything tropical, because it's really getting sheared. And but this disturbance down here in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico actually is up to a 40% chance of forming. It looks more promising than some of the other systems. And then this disturbance here probably will just go into the Gulf, or not really do anything except help this storm in the Gulf to do something. And here's a look at Invest 90. It's like just totally sheared. But you have a lot of exploding thunderstorms over the Yucatan, and so all that moisture is really heating up, and that's probably what's going to lead to a tropical storm in the southern Gulf of Mexico, which it'll probably not like hit the Gulf Coast of the U.S. or anything like that, but it could end up just meandering. Because it is pretty close to land, so it's like not. It's probably gonna form into a tropical storm, not necessarily a hurricane, because there's only so much room for it to do that. But the sea surface temperatures there are well above average, so it is possible. But it really shows it kind of. This is the GFS kind of showing it, like that first storm, Invest 90, not doing anything. And then it shows the storm in the southern Gulf forms into something, and then you have another storm. This is showing another storm, and it's been kind of consistent on showing something else after this. This one goes into the Gulf, and then it stalls along the coast of kind of the Texas-Mexico border. Kind of, it just stalls there, and then it goes inland. That's different. That probably won't happen, but there's going to be a couple of tropical systems potentially forming over the next couple of weeks. And because this is the shear is definitely really high over the Gulf. Even where that Invest 90 is, it was getting sheared apart, and then you have a lot of shear of the Gulf kind of around June 20th, but then you do have that opportunity for something to form in the southwestern Gulf where there's a bit less shear, and then you have this storm would be in a lot less shear, as you have a more favorable upper level high pressure system there. So that could do something. We'll see. And this is kind of what the Atlantic looks like right now, is unfavorable over a decent part of the Atlantic, but then you have areas where it is actually highly favorable for something to form, especially that southern Gulf, even the northwestern Caribbean is highly favorable for something. And there's a lot of Saharan dust over the main development region, which is not going to do anything anytime soon. At least it doesn't look like it. But then this is over the Caribbean and the Gulf, a lot less dust, if any. Even if some moves in, it's not going to be really thick. And the Climate Prediction Center shows June 19th to June 25th, at least a 40% chance of something forming in the southern Gulf, and then it might stop after that, like June 26th to July 2nd, maybe something in the East Pacific, but not in the Gulf. And it's showing right now we're under the favorable MJO kind of pattern over the Central America region, and then it looks like from like June 26th to like July 3rd, even going into like July 8th, could be unfavorable there before it looks like it might get favorable again towards mid-July. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more weather updates. Extreme Weather Zone, out.